Welcome, everyone, to Greg Gabriel Talks Bears. My name is Aldo Gandia. It's always a pleasure talking to Greg Gabriel, but it's especially nice after a Chicago Bears win. Greg, you feeling good today?
It's all broken up again. I'm going to do this.
Okay.
Oh, okay, now we're okay.
Yeah, it takes a little while, I think, after a video rolling. So we are live right now, Greg.
Okay.
So how are you feeling after this Bears win?
I feel good, except I don't feel as good as I did at about 6 o'clock last night. And the reason being is, I felt pretty confident the Bears were in.
Mm-hmm.
And then, regardless of what happens with Green Bay tomorrow, but then when word came out that Goff has a broken thumb, Green Bay, I've seen he does and he doesn't. I still don't know for sure, but we know he at least dislocated his thumb. That, they're going to be playing, the Rams are going to be playing the Cardinals with a guy who's never played taken a snap in an NFL game. John Wolford played the AAF. We're going to find out how good the Ram coaching staff is if that's the case. But look at it this way. Beathard just beat Arizona in Arizona on Saturday. So, anything can happen. But Green Bay looked real good last night. Hey, put it this way. This is what, if you're a Bears fan, probably ownership too, this is what you want. Okay, you want to get in the playoffs, you got to beat Green Bay. End of discussion.
That's the way it should be, in my opinion. And yeah, well, I wouldn't mind the Rams taking care of business next week, but it's not looking really good. And there's news from Adam Schefter that their running back, Darrell Henderson, is believed to have suffered a high ankle sprain in yesterday's loss, and that makes him unlikely to play Sunday, according to one of Ian Rappaport's sources. So this could be an injury-riddled Rams team facing the Cardinals next week. So,
the Rams got to win. They got to win too.
Mm-hmm.
If they lose, they could be out. So, it's important for them. But the game is in L.A. But the important thing is that this is about this Bears team that everybody had left for dead. I didn't. I'm always positive. And now they got a chance to win their fourth game in a row and get into the playoffs, which nobody thought was a possibility a month ago.
That is so true. So let's talk about this Bears win over the Jaguars. The offense comes out and they score on their very first drive. Matt Nagy was asked about, what's changed with the scripting now, because it seems like they're going out on their first possession and playing fairly well. At least they did yesterday against Jacksonville. What's your experience with coaches scripting those first 15 plays? That's been going on for years. What do you think about that whole thing?
A lot of it isn't necessarily about scoring. It's about trying to find out what the defense is going to do in certain situations. Okay. So you want to call certain plays to see exactly what the defense does or how the defense reacts. And then you have plans going forward in the game to do certain other things if the defense reacts the way you anticipate they're going to react.
Mm-hmm.
So it's part of the chess match that you have. So it's important. Now you can go back to Nagy's first year, and they opened up in Green Bay, and how good the Bears looked in that first half.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that had to do was with Green Bay didn't know what to expect. Mm-hmm. A new coach called his first game with a new team, and they Green Bay got caught off guard in that particular game. So, but they came back in the second half and won. But this week, I think it's going to be a different story. The weather, I don't think, is going to be a factor. Looking at it, I looked at it last night, and I think it said it's going to be 34, 35, and sunny. Mm-hmm. So, it's not going to be like Green Bay last night. I think Green Bay, when the snow came down, gave Green Bay a huge advantage against Tennessee yesterday.
They had trouble with their footing all game. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And that's always an advantage for the offense. And, they were playing at home. I think it's going to be a different story. People probably think Green Bay is going to blow the Bears out. I don't. see that happening. I see, the Bears have answered the bell the last month, and people still want to make negative comments and say, well, Trubisky had that awful throw. I don't give a shit. This offense has scored 35 points or better than 30 points a game for the last 4 weeks. And the last time that happened, I was a freshman in high school in the fall of 1965. I don't even know if you were alive then. But so, okay, that's 55 freaking years ago. Okay, and people want to complain. Was it a bad throw? Yeah. And you may have the clip. I just haven't heard it yet. Is there any clip as to, did the media ask Mitch why he made that particular throw?
No, there was, but I did not pull it. But he did take responsibility for it, and it's something that he's done in the past. It to me, it seemed like he was just pressing to try to get something going, like he has in the past. It's that competitive nature of guys like him and Jay Cutler that they force things to try to make something happen, and a lot of times it backfires.
Right. If his answer was, I saw a window and I thought I could make the throw.
Yeah.
I have no problem with that.
Right.
Okay. He didn't make the throw and it got picked. Okay. If he was just throwing it in there to see if he could do it, I don't like that. But, I mean, reality is he should have thrown the ball out of the end zone, and that was that. But outside of that, that's really the only mistake I saw him make all day. That touchdown throw after that to Jimmy Graham on the left side of the end zone, you won't see a better throw than that by any quarterback.
Yeah.
That was a hell of a throw. You look at it, go back a month ago, who would have thought that A-Rod would have 100 receptions? Who would have thought that Montgomery would get 1,000 yards? They both got those numbers, and there's a game to spare. So they can build on those numbers going forward. So, I think there's still people in the media and still fans thinking that these guys are playing for their job next week. I don't think so. I think that the team has come back very strong. I think you got to take your hat off to Nagy a little bit, and that, he hit himself in the face, taking away the play calling duties. And that had to be, a disruption to his ego, and everybody's got a big ego, when you're in that business. And he gave him off to the OC, and I think we've seen the offense grow in those 4 weeks, and where under Matt it became a predictable offense. There's no predictability at all in this offense right now.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think it's become much more difficult for defenses to scheme against the Bears under this new revised offense. And so we'll see. It's going to be a great measuring stick against the Green Bay Packers, because this will be the best defense that they've played during this resurgence. And so you said last week, we can't control who we are facing. But you, as a person who has scouted thousands and thousands of players, you always take into account who is that player lining up against, and how good is that player, and how good is the team that player is lining up against. And so when you apply that to the Chicago Bears over the last few weeks, you have to admit that the opponents have not been nearly the caliber of the Green Bay Packers. So it's going to be interesting.
No, that's true. But and you can say this too. I think that was Jacksonville's last home game for the season. Not 100% sure. I don't know where they're playing next week, but they put up a fight for a little while. And then when the Bears jumped ahead, the air came out of the tires real quick. And, you saw that coming. But if they would have had a little bit more success, the fight would have been there a little bit longer. But they all know that their coach's history. Come a week from today, that guy's gone. He might even be gone, next Sunday night. But once the GM got fired, Doug Marrone was fired too. He just hasn't been publicly told yet.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. All he's got to do is look at the wall, because the handwriting is there, isn't it? Jeremy in the chat says, "What the hell was going on with that damn tight end around on 1st and goal from the half-yard line?" What are your thoughts on that play call?
I didn't like. It's a bad call. So okay, he had a bad one. The play caller had a bad call and inopportune time. So what? You don't call it again. And it ended up costing the Bears points. But again, it's that, like that question. He's dwelling on the negative part of the game. What was the score? 41-17. I don't give a damn about that call. I don't care about the interception. They won the game. They had to go down there and win the game to stay alive. Okay, they're alive. Not only did they win the game, they won the game going away. They pulled most of the starters. All the key players didn't even play in the fourth quarter.
But don't you think that it's important to evaluate the things that don't go correctly so that that play a flawless game? So you got to look back at the mistakes that the team has made.
Sure, but it's easier to do that when you win than it is to lose. You know what you do with that play? You throw it away. You never call it again.
Right. Well,
okay, you may call it again, but you're not going to call it from the 1 yard line. Had the play worked and they scored on it, everybody would have said, "Oh, brilliant call."
Well, and
you know how that works.
That was my point yesterday on the Bear football game, our after game show, is I didn't mind the play call so much. It was just because it was against the Jags. You're going to score some points. Why not show everybody that's scouting this team for their next game, like the Green Bay Packers, and let them know, hey, we've got this in our repertoire. And so
but reality is, Aldo, Cole Kmet's not a racehorse. Okay, he's a Clydesdale. Okay, you're going to do a sweep with a 4-7 tight end. Come on, it wasn't a good play call. Yeah, I would have rather done it with Jimmy Graham than Kmet, but so what? It didn't work. You throw the play out. Next, go on to the next thing. I am not gonna. You've been around me enough to know I am not a negative person. I hate negativity, and I hate people building on the negative instead of building on the positive.
Yeah, but I do think Jeremy's question is fair. It wasn't negative in nature. He was just asking, what did you think of the call?
So I didn't like. I personally didn't like the call, and I guarantee you they didn't like it. But what I tell you, let's stay on the subject for a second. I saw a lot of people like David Haw. Well, that was Nagy being Nagy. Nagy didn't make that call. Nagy ain't calling the plays. So why blame him?
He did say after the game, Matt Nagy did, that they had scouted Jacksonville's looks at the goal line. And then when they came out, when the play call went in and Jacksonville lined up, he was like, oh, crap, they've got a different formation. And he said he probably should have called timeout, probably should have erased it, but they decided. Or you call
an audible at the line of scrimmage. Yeah, but, in reality, I'd have to go back and look. Where was the play clock when Mitch came to the line of scrimmage?
Yeah.
Okay. And then if you got 12, 13 seconds, you got time to call another play. Okay. Or you call the timeout, and you can call the timeout, they can call the timeout right from the sideline if they want to. But yeah, if you don't have the defense, if the defense isn't set up for the play you call, you either got to call timeout or change the play.
Our friends over at the Barfly Tailgate Show, which you can hear on our YouTube channel here, watch on our YouTube channel here every Sunday before a Bears game, they are asking you, can you compare Mitch Trubisky with a young Drew Brees?
No. I mean, they're totally different types of players. Drew Brees has never had the athleticism that Mitch has. Drew Brees is he might have measured 6 foot at the combine, but he isn't 6 feet. He's 5'11" and a half. He's a lot smaller framed guy. He doesn't have the arm strength that Mitch has, and very few have the brain that Drew Brees has. the football intellect, the insects, and he has minimal physical traits. His physical traits should say he should be about 20% as good as he is. Okay, and it's because of what's up here that he's thrown for everything he's thrown for, and all those TDs and the championship he has, and gets them in the playoffs every year. He's a remarkable, rare quarterback, and a lot of it has to do with the brain matter.
Yeah, I guess really the only similarity that I can think of is that it really wasn't until Brees' fourth year in the NFL, and Trubisky is in his fourth year now, that he started to kind of show the ability to be a premier quarterback. I'm looking at Brees' stats. His fourth year was the 2004 season. He had 27 touchdown passes that year, 7 interceptions. The previous year, he had just 11 touchdown passes and 15 interceptions. So it took him a while to progress. And I think a lot of people forget that. Greg, you know this more than anyone else in the world. Quarterbacks generally take a while to improve and get their legs under them, don't they?
Well, you know what? People want to say, well, look what Mahomes has done. Look what Watson did. Well, let's talk about Watson for a second.
Mm-hmm.
Watson hasn't done shit all year. Okay, now, yeah, some of his numbers are pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
What's the Houston record? Okay, did the head coach get fired? Yep. Okay, is some of that on Watson? Yep. Who won the battle between Watson and Mitch Trubisky? And I'm not jumping on the table for Mitch Trubisky.
Right.
I'm just, reality's reality.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think, Mitch did not play anywhere near as much football in college as Deshaun Watson. Okay, Watson was a starter 3 years for a championship caliber team, college, and was in the national championship game, I think, 2 times while he was there. So he played in big games and had a ton of playing experience that Mitch didn't have. Mahomes, go back to Mahomes. Mahomes is if Mahomes doesn't go to Kansas City with Andy Reid, Mahomes doesn't have anywhere near the numbers and productivity that he has now. Part of that is the marriage of the coach with the player. Great player, and going to end up being probably one of the great quarterbacks of all time. But again, I use the word reality too much. If anybody thought that he was going to be as good as he is, he would have gone first, not 10th or 11th or whatever the hell number he went. And there was a lot of people that had doubts with Mahomes coming out. Part of it was the offense that he played at Texas Tech. He didn't have the productivity that he had. He had gunslinger. He made some awful throws. You see Mitch make some bad throws? Go back and look at the Texas Tech tape with Patrick Mahomes. He had some horrible throws where he forced it. But when you paired him with Andy Reid, they were able to make, and his intellect. Patrick Mahomes is a very smart guy, and he's very instinctive as far as football instinct, football intelligence. So you had that marriage with him and Andy Reid and his own intellect, and he's turned out to be as good as he is. Mitch is. I don't think Mitch is a lot better now than he was 10 games ago, but he's never going to be in that class. And I think I've said it over over the years. It doesn't matter what Watson does. It doesn't matter what Mahomes does. It only matters what Mitch does.
Yeah.
And if he wins games, that's important. And here I'll use my reality word one last time. Then we'll throw it off for the day, I hope. If they win next week and they get in the playoffs, he's in the playoffs 2 out of 3 years under Nagy. Is that reality or is that fiction? That's reality.
That is definitely reality. We're seeing some highlights of the Bears' touchdowns from yesterday. What impressed you the most about how the offense worked against the Jacksonville Jaguars? They put up a lot of yards and a lot of touchdowns.
Well, I think, and I got to hit the thing in order to see the highlights, so I'm not watching them.
Yeah, that's fine.
I just think that as a whole, the offense played well. The consistency is the word I want of the offense was pretty good. Second quarter, a little bit of a dry spell. But then what's the biggest problem the offense has had all year? How they've come out from halftime after making halftime adjustments and moved the ball in halftime, okay? And they haven't scored in the third quarter. They scored almost as many points yesterday in the third quarter as they've done in the first 15 games of the year or 14 games of the year. Okay, so, they finally did what we've been looking or hoping they could do coming out of the half, and they did it. So again, I'm not going to talk about the negative. I'm going to talk about the positive. And the positive is 21 points in the third quarter.
That was a long needed, because I think that from a confidence standpoint, that really helped the team to come out and score 21 points against any team. I don't care who it is. You scored 21 points in a quarter. That's super, super impressive. What do you think about the defense's performance in the first half, where they had some problems getting off the field? Two of their first three drives, they gave up 70+ yards. Do you have any concerns about this defense? Or do you think, hey, that's normal? Giving up 10 points in a half is what's important, and only giving up 17 points for the entire game. Any thoughts you want to share about the Bears defense?
Well, first, I'm going to go in the one direction. Mike Glennon played out his ass for about a quarter and a half. And then he became the Mike Glennon we all know and love. He stunk. But, he was fired up for that opportunity. And he played pretty good. And his accuracy was excellent. And I'll say this: I think the last couple of weeks at the nickelback and at the right corner, the Bears have been playing two very inexperienced guys. And I think the defense has played a little bit more conservatively, trying to help those guys and protect those guys a little bit because of their inexperience. And so you haven't seen some of the aggressiveness up front. I think the only blitz of the game, and there might have been more than that, was Danny Trevathan's sack. They were rushing 4 all game, and there might have been a couple more where they sent 5, but for the most part, they were being very conservative with the pass rush. You knew that Mike Glennon wasn't going to make any plays with his feet, so you had to help the two young guys in the coverage aspect. I'm kind of surprised Glennon didn't go after them more, but the more they play, the better they're going to be. You just hope that, I don't really care if Buster Screen's back next week, but you hope Jalen Johnson's back. And, that will help the Bears defense tremendously.
Yeah, well, one thing that was amazing about yesterday's game is that you rarely heard Duke Shelley's name mentioned, and that's probably good news. He probably didn't do anything wrong, because that's
right. If you don't hear DB's name called, he's playing a pretty good game.
Yeah, exactly.
So and actually those guys did play better. I haven't watched the game, Phil, yet. Then they have Shelley had a big hit on one play. I remember that. And he's a little guy.
Yeah, he is.
And he put all 180 pounds or whatever the hell he weighs, into that hit. And that was good to see. But, I was glad to see, too, that in the fourth quarter, they were able to pull the important guys and let them rest. Not that they needed rest, just make sure they don't get hurt, put themselves in harm's way and let the young guys get some valuable play time, because they need it. They sure as hell didn't get it in the preseason with not having it. So let them get any play time they can have.
You mentioned Mike Glennon playing well. I thought the touchdown pass he threw in the first half was a brilliant throw. I thought Kindle Vilder's coverage was pretty good.
He did. He had good coverage on that. You can't blame it. It was a great throw. But again, you got into the second half of the second quarter, and then Glennon started going downhill, and then the second half he was horrible.
Yeah. once you started to take away the run game, which did well for the Jaguars in the first half, once you took that away because of the lead you got, then all of a sudden the Jaguars became one-dimensional and the Bears had him solved. So that was good to see. And what do you think about the fact that we saw a lot of the reserves play in the fourth quarter? That's obviously a good thing, right?
Yeah. Like I just said, most of those guys, or not most of them, all of them, didn't get an opportunity to play in the preseason. For some, it's the first play time they had all year.
Mm-hmm.
So let them play. And I'm glad my little running back Pierce got to play, because I loved when they signed that guy. He is a bullet. There's there's not a back on the roster. But Cohen's not there right now. That's a sub 4.5 guy, and he's a 4.45 guy. He's got speed, and you saw that speed on that one particular play. Happy for him. I was having a text conversation with Olin on Saturday about the offensive line, and I said to him, given the way these young guys have played on the offensive line the last few weeks, and you got Daniels coming back, how do you see that playing out? And he thinks that you're going to have Daniels and Cody Whitehair at the guards and Mustipher at the center position with Bars as a swing guy next year. So, and I agree with that, but Bars is playing good enough to be a starter in the league, but somebody's going to have to sit. And I said my feeling is they still got to draft a tackle high.
Mm-hmm.
That's the most important thing. I would use that first round pick on a tackle, assuming there's going to be a tackle that they like. And don't ask me who, because once all the juniors enter the draft, then I'm going to start breaking down the tackles in this draft, and then you're going to look at you'll know next Sunday where the Bears are going to be draft order wise, and you may not, if they get in the playoffs, then regardless, that they're going to be at the bottom of the 9 and 7 group if they're in the playoffs.
Yeah, I took a look at it this morning, and I think they were at 21 right now if the season were to end right now. So they're going to be drafting late in the first round. There's no doubt about it, particularly if they get into the playoffs. So wanted to ask you, you gave kudos to Artavius Pierce, and boy, I'm with you. That guy is something. One of the things I sent out on Twitter yesterday is that I think that this offense really belongs first and foremost to David Montgomery. I think he is kind of the lubricant that makes, it's always the offensive line.
Well, that's right. I'm just going to say that. Yeah, Montgomery hasn't changed. Montgomery's always been that good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, he hasn't had anybody block for him.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if you have no holes, you aren't getting anything.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care if it's Jim Brown, Eric Dickerson. They aren't getting anything if the holes aren't there. So he's got something now to work off, and he's making plays. He's run for over 500 yards in the last 5 games. I mean, that's.
But as part of that, clearly, yes, absolutely, the offensive line, and I'd love to talk more in depth about them. But one of the things that is necessary is for a coach to have a devotion to the run game and to schematically use it in the proper way. And what we've seen when Matt Nagy was the play caller is that sometimes he would call run plays 10 times a game, 11 times a game, and so forth. And now we're seeing runs that the Bears ran the ball yesterday over 30 times, and that's just really great.
Well, they're not getting away from it, Aldo. And if you look, Jacksonville went into that game trying to stop the run. Okay, and the run game in the first quarter wasn't that good, but you kept working at it, and part of it was, they made some plays with the pass game, even the short pass game, and that short pass game can work as a running play, because the important thing is staying on schedule and getting that second down and distance in proper order. You want 2nd and 6 or better.
Mm-hmm.
And you were having that for the most part yesterday, even though Jacksonville was trying. You look at the yardage. I think Montgomery he had 27 yards. We broke that one longer run in the first quarter, but he only finished the first half with like 37 yards. But he had he had 60 in the second quarter, in the second half.
Yeah. He is a fun runner to see. I mean, he runs in kind of a violent style. I put up a video clip from a week ago where he was hit in the backfield and he just pushed the defender off with his arm, just so strong. He pushed him off with his arm. He ended up running for minimal gain, if anything. But, it was a really good example of what a strong, powerful runner David Montgomery is.
He can create inside. He can find a seam. He can make cuts in the hole to get to that seam. He's got excellent balance. He's got very good lower body strength. He consistently gets yards after contact. He's not, first guy who hits him is the guy that brings him down.
Right.
He's always going to get yards after contact. The negative part of that is that for a running back, that keeps your career short because you take a lot of pounding. Yes,
indeed. That is worrisome. I always go back to Raymond Harris. You remember Raymond Harris with the Bears?
Yep. I wasn't here then, but I remember Raymond Harris.
Right. He had that same kind of power running style, but he just didn't have the body for it to sustain it for a long career. After a couple of seasons of that running style, you could just tell this guy, his body is giving out on him. So I hope that doesn't happen to David Montgomery. From all reports, he's a workout warrior and spends a lot of time in the gym.
Well, he thought that he was a little too fat last year. And when I say that, they use this machine. The Bears have this machine. Most of the teams have it called the Bod Pod. And you can sit at it and you get an exact quotient as far as body fat. Okay. And he thought his body fat was too high. He worked hard. He changed his diet, cut down his body fat. And so now, the lean weight, the muscle weight, even though his body weight is about the same, the lean weight is a lot more. And, that's going to help him. But still, with a running back, it's depending on how many hits you take, when a running back starts to go south because of all the different hits he takes, it isn't a slow decline like with an offensive lineman or even a receiver. It's falling off a cliff.
Yeah.
He could be great one year and horrible the next year.
Yeah.
Because once you start to lose your legs, it's all over.
Yeah. Well, and one of the reasons why Walter Payton was such a phenomenal running back, because that guy, he took a lot of punishment and gave out a lot of punishment as a Chicago Bear, but he played strong for over 10 years.
True, but don't forget, you saw back then, running backs playing probably a little bit longer than they're playing right now. Mm-hmm. Part of that reason, though, look at the size of the players on the defense now as compared to then. And the guys now are a lot bigger. And so you're getting just that mass that's hitting you play after play after play is a lot more than it was for guys in Walter Payton's era. And so your body's just taking that much more punishment.
That's a great point, Greg. I never thought about that. The players were smaller. The pads were bigger. But
pads were huge. Pads were huge. But the old adage, bigger, faster, stronger.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they are. And all these guys are massive human beings. Yeah. And just you look at some of them, once they get done playing, they go on these diets, especially the linemen, offensive and defensive linemen. And they start losing weight. And they don't lose 20 pounds, 30 pounds. They lose 100 pounds. And then I don't know if you see, Jay Hilgenberg?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Well, Jay played at 280. He's about 170 right now.
And he looks good at it.
Yeah. And Olin played at about 290. I don't know exactly what Olin weighs, but I'm going to bet It's 230, 235. Todd Thayer's a lot smaller than he was. All these guys, I could go through a list and you see the amount of weight these guys lose once because they're taking all these different supplements and stuff while they're playing.
Right.
And they have to in order to compete at that level.
Lots of talk at Hallis Hall today, not about the Jaguars win, but about the Green Bay Packers. Matt Nagy, for the entire 15-minute press conference, it was all Packer talk.
It's got to be.
It's got to be. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Before we talk specifically about this upcoming Bears-Packers game, what are your thoughts about that Bears-Packers rivalry from the years that you worked at Hallis Hall?
I think when David was on, we talked about it, the last Green Bay game. It's you got to be here. I came here in 2001, and I knew it was a big rivalry, but you got to live through it a little bit to really get to have it ingrained in you, the rivalry and it takes time, and I was a front office employee, and it's the same with the players. But once you've been through it a few times, then you realize that it's very important to the fans, very important to ownership, and it's the oldest rivalry in the National Football League. But when I came from the Giants, and the Giants, Dallas and New York was always a big rivalry game. But any NFC East game was a big rival game. Well, here though, the NFC North games, you play Minnesota, you play Detroit. Yes, it's a division game, it's a rival game, but it doesn't come close to having the notoriety and the intensity of Green Bay and Chicago. Now, still in saying that, Green Bay's had their way the last few years, and it bounces back and forth. And so, the current group of Green Bay fans are loud and obnoxious, and they like to throw a lot of shit at Bears fans, because of that, because they won the last bunch of games, and they've had two great quarterbacks in a row between Brett Favre and now Aaron Rodgers. And I think Aaron Rodgers is going to go down in history as one of the top 3 or 4 quarterbacks to ever play the game. They've had their way with the Bears, and that when Rodgers is gone, I don't know how good this guy is they drafted, how good he's going to be, but he ain't going to be Aaron Rodgers, and he ain't going to be Brett Favre. You can count on that. So when Aaron Rodgers goes, that rivalry is going to change a little bit, and then the Bears fans can be obnoxious and arrogant and loud.
Hey, before we continue our talk about the Bears and Packers, I just wanted to bring up this point from one Bearman34 in the chat. He goes, "Hey guys, the players are certainly bigger in this era, but let's be honest, the game was much more violent in Walter's day." And I don't think you're going to argue that, Greg, that the game in the 50s and 60s and 70s and 80s, that was like criminal behavior on the football field, wasn't it?
Well, you had hits in that era that are illegal now. Okay, but the overall contact, down after down contact, that's a lot more violent now, for lack of a better word, because you got bigger bodies lying, pounding against each other.
Right.
Okay, so just when you do that 60, 70 times a game, you don't have the vicious, and you get some vicious hits in the NFL right now, but like I think we talked about it before, you don't see those NFL follies and NFL highlights anymore because they're all legal hits.
Yeah.
And illegal as to today's game, leading with your head-to-head contact, stuff like that. Some of the hits on receivers that would now be a hit on a defenseless receiver, they've taken that out of the game, and for good reason. Is the game any worse now than it was then? I don't think so. You still got the same amount of people watching.
That's for sure. Now, I know you don't want to talk about negative stuff, but when we talk about the first Bears-Packers game, that was definitely a negative experience for people. I'm going to show some highlights of that first half when the Packers got off to a tremendous start. You don't need to look at the highlights, but what do you think the Bears might learn from that first meeting with the Green Bay Packers?
Well, I push games like that aside. I put them to the back of my brain. And when you're as old as I am, when it goes to the back of the brain, that's like flushing it down the toilet. Mm-hmm. So, I know that Green Bay, and they got a good offensive coaching staff. Mm-hmm. They were trying to attack weak links in the Bears' defensive scheme. Part of that was Buster Screen. Mm-hmm. Okay, and so they were putting their best receiver in the slot, and now you had a mismatch. And he played in the slot a lot. If you watch that game, he played in the slot a lot.
Right.
And so now they got away with it. Then now it's going to be shame on the Bears if they get away with it again. You've got to be prepared for that. And, the pass rush has got to be that much better. Mm-hmm. And I think the Bears were going through their doldrums then. But that's actually the last bad game they played. Mm-hmm. And we all know they should have won that. The defense didn't play good against Detroit. The offense played good. So Detroit game was the last bad game for the defense, but Green Bay was the last overall bad game, offense and defense. Since then, the offense has taken off. That's going to put a little pressure on Green Bay down too. Yeah. Green Bay's going to say, hey, this team, we've been scoring as many points as any team in the league right now over the course of the last month. So that puts pressure on Green Bay, too. They got to come down here and stop it. Nobody stopped it for the last month.
Right. Yeah, Matt Nagy was asked about that this morning, and he said that, the two worst experiences of the season for him this year was that performance against the Green Bay Packers and then that fourth quarter collapse against the Detroit Lions the following week. He said that's when we hit rock bottom.
Yep.
Right. And so, kudos. And somebody in the chat gave you kudos for saying weeks ago that Pace and Nagy aren't going anywhere, and that is certainly true. There are reports that Nagy's job is safe, and so if Nagy's job is safe, Pace is going to stay here too, and probably.
Well, I think to be fair, if anybody's got, I think Nagy is safer than Ryan. I think they're both safe, but just looking at it from there, especially because the offense has taken off. You could look at the overall stats of the year, and one of the negative guys in the media, and he's a former Chicago guy, Wilbon from ESPN, and Wilbon was trying to indict the coaching system. Well, they're scoring so many points now. Why didn't they do it at the beginning of the year? Because they didn't. That's right. Okay, they made adjustments to it. They made the correction, and now they're scoring points. So why are you bitching?
Yeah, I saw
Wilbon. Mike Wilbon likes to bitch.
Yes,
that's it. Yeah, everybody's got their own narrative.
He's made $1 million from bitching. Yeah, I saw. I don't know if it was the same one you saw, but I saw a Wilbon tweet where he was saying, "Imagine having a great running back on your team and learn how to start using him late in the season." It's like,
how about the offensive line?
Exactly.
He tried that one last week, and I called him out on it. Mm-hmm. And I sent a tweet back. I go, yeah, look at the play of the offensive line. And I said it earlier, a running back isn't worth anything unless he's got a good line blocking for him.
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly.
And these guys are playing. You can't take it away from them. They're playing good football. 1 sack yesterday.
Yeah.
Look at the number of sacks they've given up over the last month. Ain't a whole lot.
Yeah, and again, I got to go back to Sam Mustipher, the kid from Notre Dame, who was
sorry about that.
That's okay. undrafted free agent picked up from Notre Dame, and he and that interior line, the guy to his right, Alex Bars, his old Notre Dame mate, and the guy to his left, Cody Whitehair, we already know he's a Pro Bowl level guard. That interior offensive line is just so damn impressive. And so I was really interested to hear that Olin thinks that they'll insert Daniels in that left guard, move Whitehair to right guard, and then have Bars as a swing guard. That boy right away tells me this offensive line in 2021 is going to be solid in the middle.
Well, yeah, they're going to be, but they still got to get at least one more tackle.
Yeah.
And then go from there. But the guy who's getting the praise is Sam Mustipher.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you saw the article, good article in The Athletic, and a lot of quotes from Olin about it. And, Mustipher played, I think he was a 2-year starter at Notre Dame, but played even as a backup. Very smart, intelligent guy. The game isn't too big for him. And he didn't think he was strong enough and big enough. And Juan Castillo had him get up to 320. He's gotten stronger in the upper and lower body. He's playing at about 320 this year. He was probably 305, 308 last year. And you need a lot of times, especially with a rookie offensive lineman, coming out of college, they need that year in an NFL weight room to develop the way they should be developed, the changes they make in the body. But because of his intelligence and his instincts, he's playing like a veteran in his ability to come to the line of scrimmage. I thought that was going to be a problem for the Bears when he first started to play, because the center is the glue of the whole offensive line. He's got to call out the changes in the blocking scheme, et cetera, at the line of scrimmage. He's got to be able to come up to the line of scrimmage and read things very quickly. And Sam is able to do that. And so you weren't really missing a beat. And now you got a guy that, arguably probably should have been drafted. He's a steal as a free agent, but his play, if you look at his junior year play versus his senior year play at Notre Dame, and Harry was not there his senior year. He had Harry as his junior year, first year for Jeff Quinn as the offensive line coach. And on top of that, when he went into his senior year, they had lost McGlinchey and Nelson. So I think a lot was put on Mustipher his senior year, and he just wasn't quite ready for it. But that was a learning experience. And now that he's up here, and he had a year to learn and watch. He had Harry working with him last year. He's got Juan Castillo this year. He's risen to the occasion, and he's going to be a guy. He's going to be the anchor of that line for years to come.
Yeah. And indulge me for a minute here. You said the team needs to get stronger at the tackle position. The speculation is that it's going to be Bobby Massey, who will probably be released because of the contract situation. And so in the draft, they will probably be looking at a right tackle to replace Bobby.
No. I think I might not be saying this right. I think you look for a guy who can play left tackle. It's the harder position. Okay. And if you can get a guy that can play either side,
mm-hmm.
then you start him off on the right side and then move him in over to the left side, or maybe maybe you keep Effetti at right tackle and you replace Leno. Who knows what's going to happen, but you've got to get stronger in the interior. I don't care how good they've played the last 4 games. You still got to get stronger. Now, Effetti, I know Bigsy likes to point out, well, Seattle didn't think he was good enough. Well, that wasn't necessarily the case. Seattle had cap problems.
I agree.
Seattle had cap problems. They couldn't afford to pay him either.
Exactly.
And then he sat, but the word was, and Seattle could have put that out too,
mm-hmm.
to see if they could get him back cheap. We have to find better. But this guy was a winning right tackle for a playoff team year after, first 4 years in the league. He's got a lot of experience. Is he the best guy you can have out there? No, you can finally find better. And maybe guard is his best position, but he's playing pretty darn good football right now.
Mm-hmm.
The weak link, I don't think he's the weak link in the line. I think that Leno's probably the weak link in the line, because he's reached his ceiling. He's not going to get any better. And, we're going to find out what the Bears think in the offseason because Fetty only had a 1-year contract. So are you going to extend him, release Bobby Massey, and then, what are they going to do with Leno? And they might not, you don't do anything with Leno, really. They got to make a decision on Fetty first. But you don't do anything with Leno until after the draft because you got to see what you can get in the draft.
Right. Lots of debate going on in the chat room regarding Leno. A lot of people say we should keep Leno for next season. A lot of people are saying Leno is a waste of talent. How do you evaluate Charles Leno's play this year? I'll tell you one thing. He's available. He plays. He hasn't missed a game in a long time.
He's played better the last month. When he gets beat bad. Okay, I mean that's been very obvious. He's not your prototypical left tackle. Okay, he's 6'3" and 7/8 or 6'3" and 3/4. He's short for a tackle. Ideally you want a 6'5", 6'6" guy. He's got longer arms, and he's able to get by with those longer arms and play taller than his 6'3" and 3/4 height. But reality is he's not 6'4", he's not 6'5", he's not 6'6". And hey, this guy was a 7th round draft choice? Mm-hmm. For a reason. He's overachieved. You've gotten a lot out of this guy. But what personnel departments are about is getting players that are better. You want to keep upgrading. And you haven't. When's the last time the Bears drafted a tackle high? It's been a long time.
Way too long. Yes.
Long time. Now, the two guys, they drafted two guys last year in the 7th round, Albright and or how do you say his name?
Arlington Hambright.
Arlington Hambright and Simmons. Mm-hmm. Simmons has that ideal height and weight, length that you want. And he's a pretty strong guy and he's a tough guy, but he played at Tennessee State. So the level of comp that he played against, pretty low as far as a game after game basis. So he's a raw talent that needs to be developed. Now, the coaching staff, they're working with the guy all year. And they're going to know how far he has developed this year. We don't have the answer to that. We're not seeing him play, so we don't know. And we don't see practice tape. So, how they feel about him, that remains to be seen. I'm just saying right now, it wouldn't shock me if that's the direction they go in the first round of the draft. But if they're not picking till 25, 26 or something like that, 25, their chances of getting a quality left tackle are pretty nil anyway. There's another Notre Dame guy I like there who might fall in that late first, early second, and that's Eichenberg.
Liam Eichenberg.
Yeah, who's a 3-year starter. He's 6'5". He's got length. And I was at Notre Dame when he visited. I went down to see Harry during spring practice on a Saturday practice. Mm-hmm. And it just so happened that was one of the days, and it was, wasn't the official visit. It was just, drove from Cleveland to come see, during his junior year to come see a Notre Dame practice on a Saturday and spend some quality time with Harry. But it wasn't the official visit. And Harry introduced me to the guy. And, you could see back then that he was going to fill out and be the size that you wanted. But the one thing about him and his play this year that jumped out, there was one game he played, he got poked in the eye. And his eye totally shut. Now, a lot of guys, I can't remember if it was the left eye or the right eye, but it was all swollen up, totally shut. Mm-hmm. Yet he missed one series. They put a shield on, and then he came right back out and played. That tells you a lot about the player right there.
Indeed, it does. Interesting question in the chat from B. Quinn. He asks, is it possible at all that you could move an Alex Bars out to the left tackle? He's got the size at 6'6".
He's not a tackle. He was a tackle in high school. Notre Dame tried him at tackle. He's not a tackle. He's a guard.
Yeah.
Now, you can play him out there to get out of a game, but I don't see him as a NFL starter tackle.
Yeah, because he actually played in a preseason game left tackle at a point where it wasn't. It was last year that the team ran out of left tackles in a preseason game, and so they threw him out there, and he played.
And it wasn't that bad. But now go back, and here's the thing: is what you see in preseason and what you see in the regular season are two different things. Preseason is basic football. Okay, so it's basically man on man, and you can, find out a lot about a guy, but it's not regular season football. You go back to Cowart's first 2 years with the Bears after they moved him to tackle. He looked like he was going to be a star playing at right tackle.
Yeah,
right?
Right, yeah.
Okay, guess what? He's not. He's a backup.
That's right.
And everybody found it out. And he's a backup that if he has to play, he's not good enough. So which means that he's probably not going to be around after this year.
I know you've got to ice down that knee, but there's a couple of things that I want to bring up before I let you go. A lot of talk in the chat room about Devontae Adams. He had a sensational game.
One of the best in the game.
He is truly one of the best of the game. And I remember when he came out of Fresno State, I believe it was, a second rounder.
Right.
And it took him a little while, just like with Jordy Nelson. A lot of people forget that Jordy Nelson's first 2 or 3 years with the Packers, he was sort of average, and it just took him a while to develop this chemistry with Rodgers. And now Rodgers.
Well, part of it's the route running too. It's learning the route tree.
Exactly.
And playing. He's a fast guy, but you got to be able to play at that speed from the wide receiver position, not just on a go route. And he had to learn an NFL route tree and learn to play at speed. And once he did that, he's become one of the best wide receivers in the game. Yeah.
Now, do you tell Kyle Fuller, follow him everywhere he goes, or how do you play?
That's an interesting question. And that could be something that Chuck Pagano wants to do this week, in that he could say, you know what? We're going to put Fuller on Adams, and if Fuller's in the slot, if Adams is in the slot, Fuller's in the slot, and just do that. They've done that in the past, but you don't want to have Green Bay's got some big receivers, and with some of these guys hurt in the Bears secondary, some of these backups like Buster Screen and Duke Shelley, they're small guys. And so I don't care if you got to go against those guys, there's already a mismatch there because they're undersized.
Now, I've got a theory on how to beat Aaron Rodgers. I want to bounce it off you to get your thoughts.
Yeah, beat the shit out of him. Hit him.
Well put. But actually, my theory is different.
If you hurt his knee again, make sure it's hurt worse.
I love it. My theory is actually different, is make sure you keep him in the pocket and don't let him run around for 10 seconds finding an open receiver. So it is important to keep the edges, keep him in the pocket, get the rush up the middle. And so maybe sacks aren't
you got to
as disrupting the throw and disrupting the timing. That's the more important thing than letting him running around.
Well, first of all, you look at his completion percentage for the year. It's like, 77% or something like that? He's the most accurate thrower in football. Okay, so I don't care if he's running around or sitting in the pocket. You give him time to sit in the pocket, he's going to find an open guy, and he's going to hit him. The key is, you don't want him to get out on the perimeter, but you've got to put pressure on him, I think. What the Bears have done, and I'm not a coordinator, so I can't tell you what's right and wrong in that. You can sit and argue about it, but the Bears, at least under Pagano, and even with Fangio a little bit, the way they played him is rush 4 and play coverage. Okay. that doesn't always work as you picks your part. You rush him forward, you're giving him time. Mm-hmm. So I think that you've got to put pressure on him. You got to rush 5 more often than not, and put that pressure on him so he forces some throws. Mm-hmm. But again, he's going to kill you one way or the other. You got to, your coverage has got to be perfect. You got to put some pressure on him, and you got to stop the run.
Now, there have been games where he has not played well. A couple of games I can recall against the Chicago Bears. When John Fox took that team up to Lambeau, they contained Aaron Rodgers. The game under Matt Nagy's first season where the Bears clinched the NFC North at Soldier Field, they did a great job of containing Aaron Rodgers. And so it's not impossible to get him there. And he's actually had 2 games this year where he's passed for under 200 yards, and his QBR was among the lowest of his career. So there are defensive schemes that can be effective. Doug Farrar, I don't know if you know Doug Farrar. He writes for a couple of websites. He's written a really fabulous book on all of the innovations that have taken place in the NFL. He says that if you're going to blitz Aaron Rodgers, then you need to do it in a way that you disguise it, and you
absolutely, because he is so experienced that he comes to the line of scrimmage. He knows exactly what's going on just by the look. So, yeah, you're right. You've got to disguise it. It's got to be a delay type thing where you're not hinting at that when you've got your pre-snap looks.
Yeah. It's going to be an interesting game, and we're going to be talking
Bears got to be at their best, offense and defense. Simple as that.
And we're going to talk more about it later in the week. Greg, so you're going to take some ice out and ice down that knee. Tell our followers here what happened prior to you coming on the show today.
No, I went to physical therapy, and as usual, they beat the piss out of me. But, that's what they're supposed to do, and it's a little painful. And the old adage, no pain, no gain. So and then they make it better. If you don't do that, it's not going to get better. So that's just it's a time. I'm glad I had it done. The surgery done. It's time consuming as far as the rehab, but it's not like I can go out and play golf today. So
yeah. By the way, somebody sent me a message. They listened to our last show and they said, Aldo better be able to run fast because Greg Gabriel's going to kick his ass. And I told him, well, Greg has just had knee surgery, so I think I can.
And last year I had Achilles surgery on the same leg. My days of running are over.
Okay. Well,
you could jog backwards and you're going to beat me.
But I'd be out of breath in about 10 seconds. That's my problem. But I'm looking forward to our next chat. Thank you very much for dealing with the pain. You are a warrior, and I love doing this with you. We'll talk to you soon. And for everyone else, we got plenty of Bears talk the rest of the week. Just stay with us here at the Bears Ballroom Radio Network on our podcast station, and check our YouTube channel for all sorts of great stuff this week. It is Packer week, so let's go out there and get a win and get into the playoffs. Take care, everybody.
See you later.